Well, thank you as always for spending your valuable time here with us. We do appreciate it and always try to give you lots of value. And today should be no exception. I'm your host, Cindy Watson, and today we're going to be talking with Courtenay Shipley about negotiating retirement for yourself and for employees. Welcome, Courtenay. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think this will be an interesting conversation. For those of you who may not know her, Courtenay's the founder and chief planologist, which I love, of Retirement Planology. She not only offers her clients expertise in investment analysis, plan design, and employee education, but she actually helps leverage employee benefits in a way that supports business goals too. She holds so many designations, we probably don't have time to talk about all
So
of
many, so many.
accredited investment fiduciary, a chartered retirement plan specialist, a certified plan fiduciary advisor, certified exit planning advisor. That's something I definitely have not paid enough attention to, that all-important exit plan. And
Yeah.
she's also the president of the Retirement Advisor Council and has earned well-deserved accolades as top woman advisor, Napa Young Gun, FT Top 401 advisor. So why don't you kickstart us off, Courtenay? Tell us, how did you come to do this kind of work?
Oh my goodness. Not the traditional route at all. I was a music major in college and did not, didn't have a very good idea about my career path
Yeah.
after college. And so I took a job and it was in insurance at the time, and retirement plans was the other thing that we also sold. And I loved the retirement plan side of things, the investments and helping people make sense of some really complex things that seem unapproachable. And so I just figured out a way to make an entire career out of that and won the lottery on bad bosses for a while, as many entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
And then went out on my own, starting Retirement Planology in 2014. So,
Very cool.
mhm.
Okay. What instrument, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, trumpet player. Yeah,
Trumpet. Oh
I
my, I
know.
clarinet myself, but which nobody ever uses again in their life. So I don't know what
That's
I'm
right.
thinking, but so why don't you tell us,
It's
why does retirement planning matter? I think so many people sort of push it off as a, what try
yeah.
otherwise.
Retirement's for old people. We hear
Yeah.
that a lot. Why do we want to think about that now? And kind of follows the Franklin Covey principle, I think it is, that begin with the end in mind. Is that who said that? I think if you don't have a goal or you don't have a path, then any path will get you there. And so from the Cheshire Cat when Alice in Wonderland. So, if you want to continue working for the rest of your life, that's totally fine. There's no one who's going to tell you you can't do that, perhaps. But if you do not want to show up at a job to get a paycheck anymore, then you're going to you need to start thinking about how you'll make your own paycheck
Yeah.
later in life. And we don't, everybody has a different idea about what retirement means. Some people say, oh, it's where I get to travel. It's where I get to hang out with my grandkids. Or, I'm just going to putter about and do my thing. I'll whittle. You hear all kinds of fun things. I'll buy a fishing boat. And retirement really does mean something different to everybody. But what we settled on when we do our enrollment meetings is that it's the luxury to decide how you spend your time later in life.
I
And
love
so it's all about having those choices in place, right? And being able to do what's right for you at that point in time.
Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful framing for it. And it's interesting, as you're saying about, hey, if you want to work forever, that's your choice. I think sadly, a lot of people end up being sort of forced to work much longer than they want to because they didn't have a retirement plan in place. And
Sure.
I'm seeing that a lot now where you've got, lawyers and adjudicators and people who are long past the point when they thought they'd be working because they got used to a certain lifestyle and had no retirement plan in place. So what
That's
are
right.
some of the key components that should be considered when creating retirement plans?
So the first is, what are you going to be receiving, like from Social Security, or if I know you have an audience in Canada as well, so there may be something that's similar. So
Yep.
what is it that you plan on that's government provided? The next thing would be, what are you doing on your own in order to save for your own retirement? Are you going to do something individually? And then there's the corporate sponsored plan.
Yeah.
And that one is where, if you are the practice leader, probably have a lot of control over how that plan gets designed and
Yeah.
set up and how you use it. So especially if you're one of the partners. So those are the three components to it. And some people will take a non-traditional approach and say, well, the value of my business is also going to be considered as part of that because I intend to sell it at some point. So there's some different things that you can put into play when you're looking at your whole picture. But the most important thing is that you're just taking a step back to see what could be in that picture.
Yeah. And what are like doing, because when you'd mentioned about as well, if you are the partner or,
Mhm.
for the entrepreneurs out there listening as well,
Yeah.
if you are the partner or the business manager or owner, what are
Mhm.
some of the components that they need to be considering about, having retirement plans for its staff?
So a retirement plan serves several different functions. One is that it's an attraction and retention tool. You're not going to get good staff members if they can go somewhere else and have a better benefits package, and retirement happens to be part of that.
Yeah.
The second is on the tax savings. Everybody gets tax savings if they are contributing to their retirement plan in some form or fashion. And so that's important for the partner, for planning purposes of their own tax planning. The third part would be, how do you want to reward your staff, or how do you want to ensure that they do stick around? And that might be profit sharing. How are you incentivizing them to help bring business in the door or help get business done? And so you may have different tiers of employees who are in charge of moving the needle in different ways. And the retirement plan can be a nice piece that helps to reward that
Yeah.
and drive the right behaviors.
Have you seen a different sort of, post-COVID, we heard a lot of talk about the great resignation and
Yeah.
the reset, and things did seem to get more competitive. And I think
Mhm.
there's also a shift with a lot of employees where people reprioritize what they want out of life. So have you seen an impact on that for employers to need to step it up a little bit more?
I have, yes. There was a lot of uncertainty around that time. And so we did see some employers pull back on their matching or really exercise the word discretionary, which meant they had the choice to decide if they put any matching or any profit sharing in the plan at the end of the year. So we've kind of seen that come full circle. Now everybody's back looking at, profitability nice and closely so they can see if they can retain those employees a little easier by beefing up the benefits package in some way or another.
Yeah, it's funny because I get the instinct to have pulled back, but I think a lot of employers made a mistake by pulling back at a time when they should have been offering more to induce so they had the best possible players, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing we're seeing a lot of is taking inventory of what your staff actually wants. Like you said, people have reprioritized. Working from home is now maybe more important, or that gym membership actually is valuable.
Yeah.
And nobody wants your ping pong table in the break room anymore, or giving an allowance for having a
Yeah.
computer at home or something along those lines. And so we are seeing a lot more interest from employers in trying to survey their employees to see what they find of value, and then realigning how they're spending their dollars on their benefits packages in order to meet those needs.
Yeah. And what kind of competition, or well, competition is the wrong word, but what is being offered out on the market today?
Oh gosh, we've seen a lot of the very standard stuff, like health insurance, of course, is the first thing that everybody wants to have. The second would be some sort of disability or life insurance coverage for the family. Then you have your retirement plan. And if you have those three pillars in place, those are probably the most important, right? The basics,
Yeah.
because they are the financial foundation for anybody's financial plan. And then on top of that, then we start seeing more creative things. So it really depends on the industry and what the employees find valuable, but we've seen student loan payback programs where they're bonusing their employees specifically to put money towards their student loans to keep them there working for them. We've also seen some other interesting benefits like discounts so we have like a blue collar group that looked at some of their different vendors to see if they could get discounts for their employees on those tools and other, equipment so that they could do their hobbies at a discount. So it's just, creative thinking. You've really
Yeah.
got to see what they value and then go from there. And it could just be that, in order to entice people to come back to the office, you're giving them free coffee at the shop next door. I mean, it could be anything along those lines.
Yeah. Now, I know you are known to speak to the importance of retirement plans needing to be culturally competent. Can you explain what does
Mhm.
that mean? I think a lot of our listeners may not know what that represents.
Yeah. When you think about who you employ, the demographics are important, and making sure that the benefits, specifically the retirement plan, because that's our wheelhouse, aligns with what your employees see, think, feel, do, related to the plan. So if they are of the culture that maybe involves family members in their decision-making process, understanding how they make those types of financial decisions or how they view retirement can really help. So for example, we had a group down on the border of Texas and Mexico. And so there was one group who came in and said, I don't think I need to save for retirement. I'm a really good saver. I saved this much money for my daughter's quinceañera, and I just feel like, why do I need to tie it up into this account? And so we were able to have a great conversation about, the tax benefit, the investing, like how this sits separately, the protections that it has versus just saving in a bank account and earning like a low interest rate. But the information gap there was pretty significant. And it was also just based on like, well, I'm a good saver. This is what I'm able to do. And this is how we save. So being very considerate about who your people are and getting the right message across. And so we've seen in marketing where we don't have the right group of people on the front cover of the brochure, right?
Okay.
They don't look like me, therefore this must not be for me. Or talking about retirement in terms that maybe that culture doesn't even recognize as possible. So there's lots of different nuances in the messaging for just considering how you're talking to people about retirement that need to be considered so that we are more inclusive and so that everybody feels like this benefit really is for them and they can see themselves in it.
Oh, and thanks for raising that. We pay a lot of lip service these days to DEI, that diversity, equity, and inclusion, and yet there are gaps. There are still some big gaps, and that's one, like you said, I'm just being sensitive to what retirement means based on different demographics within the workplace and beyond. Now, you mentioned industry before that it depends, and I'm curious, just obviously having practiced law for a long time, how do lawyers sit on that? Because I do find they tend to sometimes be slow. They're very old school. We still have very traditional models. I'm trying to drag them kicking and screaming out of that to a better way to hence practicing with purpose. But I'm wondering how do they score, if you would say, on this issue?
Yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting things about law firms. Like you said, the career of a lawyer can be very long. And there's a lot of lawyers who really love their job and find a lot of fulfillment from it. And so maybe retirement for them looks like stepping back. And it looks like the transfer of institutional knowledge and still being there as, I call it like the brain surgeon who gets called in for the really tough stuff and the rest of the staff deals with kind of the day-to-day. We also have seen where they will set up some pretty creative plans in order to max out what they can save. So cash balance plan being coupled with a 401k plan, for example. We've also seen that they ask a lot of questions.
Shocking.
They want to know all of the information. And so we set aside some extra time in our enrollment meetings, typically, just to make sure we get everything covered. But they love the one-on-one interaction. And so we almost always have the option for people to meet with us one-on-one to talk about their situation. Now, that's the lawyers. Then you have the paralegals. They're slightly different, and they are usually a little bit more intimidated by the investing side of things, and they want to ask some more questions about that. And then maybe you just have like the office support staff, same deal. And they are, that's where your retention probably comes in, is that those are the very important people that are the backbone of the company. So making sure that they really understand and appreciate the plan and know when they're eligible to get in it, that's really important. So that's typically what we're seeing with law firms. But I mean, once we get over that hump of, like you said, the very traditional mindset of, hey, this is how creative we can be with this plan, and this is how we can take care of your staff and make this valuable, then they are on board 100%.
That's great. Now, what industry have you found are sort of leaders on this, who are ahead of the curve and more proactive, I guess, for want of a better term? Or is one that stands out?
I don't know that there is one that stands out. I think everybody has their own, peculiarities. Yeah, I don't know that there's exactly one.
Now, do you find that most individuals, like, you don't have to give me an exact number in terms of percentage, but do individuals step up to take care of their own retirement planning needs in your experience? Or do you find that most are just dependent on whatever plan the employer puts in place?
So we are seeing from surveys more and more that employees are relying on their employer in order to, give them that level of financial education and the benefit. And so I would say you can definitely subdivide out by generation about what
Yeah.
each one thinks or how they approach the retirement plan. Your baby boomer generation, 401ks were new. So
Yeah.
a lot of them were a little bit late to the game, but did well in them. Then you'll see like Gen X hasn't saved enough. Typically, the next level down would be millennials, and they got lectured by their parents. You will sign up for this 401k plan. Everybody from millennial below has gotten that lecture, and they are like, oh, I'm supposed to sign up for this.
And they're listening. Shocking.
Yeah. And we're seeing more and more that they expect automatically to be enrolled. Like,
Yeah.
why do I have to fill out the paperwork? Amazon
Oh,
tells me
funny.
what I want to buy next. Like, how come I have to go in and do this?
Yeah.
So they love the default provisions. And for the most part, people rarely opt out of those, like defaulting them into the plan, and they
Yeah.
appreciate it. And they appreciate an automatic increase at some point too. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh, that's funny. That's great. I love that you had that divided by the generational demographics. I hadn't thought of that, but it makes
Yep.
common sense as you say it. Now, you had mentioned benefits earlier. What do you suggest people need? What do we need them? I think, that's a pretty obvious answer, I think. But what specifically are you guys recommending?
Oh gosh. Again, it comes back to who are you trying to
Yeah.
retain, and what do they find valuable? Because benefits are only valuable if they're relevant to the person, right?
Yeah.
In that situation. And it's
Yeah.
going to be hard to get something that's universally relevant to everybody at the same time.
Yeah.
So you do have to view some benefits as more like the employee assistance program. It's more point in time, like, oh, we're about to have a child. We love this policy that you have about work from home or maternity leave or things along those lines. And so I think you have to look really hard at who you have and then work backwards from there, because it's really easy to get the traditional ones in place, the health insurance, the life insurance, the disability, the 401k, that sort of thing. But then do you have an older workforce, and do they appreciate retirement more so than some of these other things? Or do you have a lot of young families and maybe offering a college savings program or some sort of matching program like that, where they would find that to be of interest? So those are the types of conversations that you need to be having within, your company about
Yeah.
what they find relevant.
Yeah. And is that what you mean then when you talk about, because I know you sometimes talk as well about how benefits can address employee pain points. Is that what you're talking
Yes.
about? Like what
Yes,
do they need?
definitely. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
And what are some of the biggest pain points that you're seeing out there today? Is there been a shift, or again, is it typically dependent on the industry, the demographics within that particular workplace?
Yeah, it can vary, but I would say from a national perspective, we still don't have as many retirement plans in place as we need. We
Mm.
still don't have average savings rates being where they need to for people to be on track to retire on time, based around, sometime around 65, 67. And
Yeah.
so those automatic nudges that I just talked about a minute ago, where you can set up your 401k or other retirement plan to automatically enroll people maybe at a higher rate than they would have chosen themselves. They rarely opt out, so that could work. The other pain points that we see are, women tend to save less or have saved less than men, simply because they are more likely to step out for caretaking reasons at some point in time. So employers who can maintain that flexibility to allow women time to, more flex time with
Yeah.
their working hours or other accommodations like that is very helpful and very useful. And also hopefully will drive the retirement savings over time as well.
Yeah. And anything we can do to protect ourselves, Courtney, about like I know we've had periods where, the market fluctuates and you hear horror stories about people who have saved for the, had their retirement savings plan in place forever. And then imminently before they're about to retire, everything crashes and they're left with nothing. Anything we can do to help safeguard? Any tips you've got?
Well, I think there's a few things. The first is make sure that you've picked a good investment strategy that is based on your risk tolerance, especially when you're, within 10 years of retiring, that you've really honed in on what you're doing and starting to make the preparations
Yeah.
and focusing specifically on your investment allocation. The second is get some professional help. We have no problem going to a doctor, going to the dentist, getting professional help on things that we don't know as much about. So find somebody that you're comfortable with, that's approachable, that can explain things where you understand it, and get the help. And put this, this is a complex conversation, and most everyone that we know and work with have a lot of moving parts to it. So it's important to get another person's ideas rather than ChatGPT or something like that. The other thing to keep in mind when it comes to investing, it's the long game.
Yeah.
And when you get ready to retire, sure, you might be 65, but that still means by most life expectancy that you've got another 20, 25, even 30 years to live. My grandfather just turned 100.
Oh my gosh,
And
congrats.
he's still kicking it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you have to think about this from the long game. So maybe tomorrow the balance went down, but you're not going to take the entire balance out in one go. So you've got time for things to come back. And again, it all comes back to being comfortable with the decision that you've made about the investment allocation, understanding the risk that goes with it, and making sure that you're in the right spot at the right time for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And let me ask, how do you define success? Like both, I would say, I mean, one of the things I'm on a mission about with this part of the purpose of this podcast is having people reframe how we define success. So I'd be interested in your perspectives on that.
Oh my gosh. So, okay. Success with business for me, since I own my own firm, right, is having enough balance and wiggle room to take care of my family and flex back and forth between what our needs are and also support us financially. So my husband travels quite a bit, my son, my dog, we've got to make sure all those moving parts are covered. So success for me, I have, certain financial goals that I have for where I want to be, but it's really about flexibility, and it's about working with clients that I love and making sure that I'm making impact, and helping people save for their retirement really does make me happy, allowing those people to have those choices later in life. So I would say that that's success. And I would caution anybody to have any measuring stick really, except for the one that you decide on, because when you compare yourself to other people and you get the comparitis going, it's really interesting, because when you think somebody has it all together, a couple of questions down the road, you realize they don't have anything together.
And
not even comparing yourself to.
It's funny, as you were saying that, it just struck me, maybe I've thought of it at some level before, but it really resonated with me. That's the problem we have in school. Everybody's so busy trying to be like everybody else.
Sure.
And yet it's a guaranteed recipe to have less than you're capable of in life. It's those people who step outside of the box and are willing to decide what life ought to look like for them on their terms, who end up being the biggest successes in life, right? I'm sure Pink was not a traditional kid back in elementary school, right? And she didn't give a rat's ass. So
no. She's the best. Yeah, I think that is the advice that they give about running and running marathons is run your own race, right? Don't worry about what everybody else is doing, because you're not trying to catch them.
And I want to really put a pin in that for our listeners, because I think we do carry that piece of us from childhood, that constant need to compare ourselves. And I know there are some studies that shocked me and I'm going to probably bastardize how this works, but people were given the choice, if you could make X amount of money that was less than what you actually needed to meet all of your needs, but it was more than all of your contemporaries, would you choose that? Or would you choose an amount of money that was more than what you needed for it to meet all of your needs, but less than your contemporaries? And staggeringly, to me, a majority of people chose to get less than what they needed, so long as it was more than, than the neighbors, than the Joneses.
Gosh.
Like, how messed up is that? And I want to really put a pin for our listeners as well, just circling back to something Courtney said about getting help. I want to make sure we didn't gloss over that, because it's true. We have these weird boundaries in life where we recognize that we need professional help for this or that. What is more important than your financial security and making sure that you have your benefit coverage in place, your long-term retirement needs in place? So I really want to echo what you said about go get the help that you need to make sure that the plan makes sense for you and that all your needs are covered. So, well, and just sort of as we're starting to wind up, you've been great. You talk fast like me. You get lots of information in. For individuals out there who do not have an employer who's providing it right now, what would be the top 3 sort of tips that you would give them, or even just first steps? What would you suggest that they look at right now or do if they don't have anything in place?
If they don't have anything in place, I would encourage, and they don't have any leadership say over being able to start the retirement plan, I would say to talk with whoever the managing partner is or HR and say, hey, we really do need to have something in place. This would be great for us, and work on it from an internal standpoint. You can always set up your own individual retirement account outside an IRA. There's lots of different ways to invest on your own. So if you don't have it offered through your employer, then definitely do something on your own, because, you know, zero is going to be zero next year unless you add to it. Yeah, if you are in a leadership position and you haven't started a retirement plan yet, then, you know, it's time. People want to save, and I promise that the tax savings and some of the other perks that you'll get from it are going to be worth it in the long run. So engage with somebody like us, and we can definitely help put the plan together, make sure it runs compliantly, all that good stuff. And if you already have a plan, many times employers will set up a plan and then it's like, set it and forget it. It's like, oh, we have that. We started it 10 years ago, and they can grow out of alignment without even realizing it. Your workforce has changed. You've got more employees, you have less employees, you have different employees. And so it's important to be looking at that strategy behind it and making sure the plan is doing what it's supposed to do for the people involved. So that's another place where we come in quite a bit, is to help employers take stock of what they have and just make sure that we can tweak it to fit what they need at this point in their business.
I love that. Yeah, and both for employers and individuals. I was surprised when we finally had somebody sit and take a look at, you know, what are the assets we have? What are the liabilities that we have here? Where does that leave us if I wanted to retire next year or in 10 years or in 20 years, right? It was an eye-opening experience. So I definitely encourage our listeners out there to do that. And as you said, even if you've got zero, it's going to be zero to, it's kind of like that expression of planting a tree. When was the best time? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Today.
Now.
So
you got
well,
it.
I normally like to end by asking, what is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? So Courtenay, it doesn't have to be about this issue at all. Something that just makes you show up differently, think differently about something.
What is enough?
I
think that was a good one. What is enough? And I think especially women entrepreneurs, I've seen this in some of the business groups I've been in, is that we think we just really have to overdo it on our services and just absolutely, you know, treat our clients with white gloves and everything else. And sometimes that isn't what they need. They didn't need quite so much, or, you know, we weren't listening exactly to what they did need. And so I think what is enough is a very important thing, not only in business, but also how big do you want your client base to get, or how big do you want your business to be? How much money do you think you need to make? What do you want your life to look like? What does enough feel like for self-care? What does enough feel like for your family and the time that you spend and the memories that you make? So I think just pondering that for a while has been a huge mind shift for me at times.
Wow. That was like, that was a gorgeous mindset shift for me. I thought that was gorgeous. Oh my gosh. And I'm going to get that little clip and be promoting that out there. That's super valuable advice. And it's funny. It reminded me, I'll go have to pull that up. I remember years ago, I had a little epiphany about that vis-a-vis our kids and what we're teaching them, you know, and it kind of ties back to what we were talking about success, right? Like what is enough for success to define? We're so conditioned to push always for more money, more clients, bigger, 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 as if that's better. And very few people at the end of life go, oh, I wish I'd taken more time away from my family or vacation time to, you know, it's true. And I'd started to write this a little kid's book called Too Much, Not Enough, with just these contrasting images of, you know, even in third world countries where you see kids playing with a soccer ball made out of tied up garbage bag, but such joy, unbridled joy. And here we are in North America with gazillions of dollars of obscene amounts of toys, and I'm bored, right? So that was a beautiful insight. So where can people learn more about you, Courtenay?
They should go to the website, which is retirementplanology.com/learn more. I'm also active on LinkedIn, so linkedin.com/C Shipley, so they can find me there as well.
Beautiful. And we will make sure to put that in the show notes. Thank you so much. You've had some great insights and mindset shifts here. Really appreciate all of the little golden gems you've dropped for us today, Courtenay.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun.
And for our listeners, I have no doubt you got lots of value from this episode. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that, and give the gift of sharing as well. Share this episode with other people who maybe are putting this on the back burner that you know of, who could use this little nudge to maybe make this a priority. And make sure to check out my other podcast as well, The Art of Feminine Negotiation, and my book of the same name, Art of Feminine Negotiation. And that is a wrap for this episode. Until next time, go forth and find ways that you can practice on purpose. Find a better way to practice law so that you can rekindle your passion and make a difference in the world, negotiating your best life on your terms. Until next time, take care.